Good evening, traders. This is CloudChartist with your weekly Ichimoku wrap for the week ending December 9th. This is December 11th, Sunday night. If you are regular in joining me for this video, you'll probably recognize the dogs barking in the background to be my lovely neighbor's dogs. And hopefully they'll stop. Maybe you can't hear them. Hopefully you can't hear them. And maybe we'll get to hear my neighbors come out and yell at them. It's a regular routine around here. Anyway, I'm going to start off with CL tonight, and for those of you who tune into my video just to see the crude analysis, you can check out early. So I've been talking about the big inverse head and shoulders thing for a while now, so I'm not going to go into that at the moment. Let's just look at the weekly analysis. So last week's candle was a long-legged doji type candle, very small candle body. This does look like a potential topping pattern type candle, but that would need to be confirmed by a trend reversal to the downside that would be identified by a lower high and a lower low. If we do find sellers, this is obviously a prior resistance zone. We weren't able to get over this level before, and we did get a pullback. If we do get a reversal to the downside, we do have support at, there's actually a small gap to fill slightly lower. I'll identify right here. Boom, like that. So the actual levels of that gap are, the gap will be completely filled when we get to the top of this candle body, which is at 48.25. So that's a potential level of support if we do find selling to the extent of that we would go that low. If we do continue selling below that, we can look for support at the Tenkan Sen here at 47.31. If we go below the Tenkan Sen, we have support at the Kijun Sen at 45.81. If for some reason we get, a real, and that's my cat who also stars in the video every week making glass breaking type noises. She likes to go in this cabinet and knock all of the empty bottles around on the floor and whatnot. So she's trying to do that now. Anyway. And the dogs are still barking. So if we do find selling even lower below the Kijun Sen, we could find support at the top of the cloud. That is going to be at approximately 43.81 next week. Notice that we do have a slightly lower cloud into the end of the year, dipping down to this twist area. That's going to be the week of the 19th. If we do actually sell that far back, that would be like a $9 move almost. It's a precarious area as support is very thin right here. So if we do get a really big sell-off in crude, we could lose cloud support and go back into bearish territory where we haven't been in a long while. So that's about it. And as far as to the upside, the only thing we can determine upside from is past levels. Oops, bear with me for a second. Somehow I managed to put my screen a little bit low. Okay, so as far as upside, I've been talking about this gap window above here for quite a long time. And I actually, so that gap window is up here at, let's see, 54.90 is the beginning of that gap window, and the end of that gap window is 56.50. So if we do continue to the upside, I'd be looking at that 54.90 level as potential resistance. All right, and that's about it for crude on the weekly time frame. Let's move on to the ES. ES made all-time highs, new all-time highs last week. Very strong move to the upside. We're not yet overbought on the RSI, so there's no reason to think that we can't go higher. It would be healthier for us to flag for a while if we were going to go higher, but there seems to be a lot of momentum to the upside right now. if we do get a pullback, we could pull back into this prior consolidation zone, like around 2210 thereabouts. If we lose that area, which is like from maybe 2185 to 2210, we could come back down and test the Tenkan-sen. Tenkan-sen is currently at 2142.13, but I'm going to guess that when the new candle opens in a few minutes, it's in about 15 minutes, it will be higher, maybe up around, wow, a gunshot. I don't know if you heard that. Around 2165 thereabouts. I do see that we do have actually a small gap I can identify for us here that I didn't notice previously. Ooh, gunshot and police car noise. It's pretty exciting around the hood today. So there's a gap window here. If we do pull back this far, which would be quite a pretty strong pullback, all the way from, we're currently at 2255.75 all the way down to 2165 thereabouts. That level is actually 2164.50 is the beginning of that gap window, and the bottom of the gap window is 2160.50. That would be a significant pullback, and it's possible that the Tenkan-sen might be up in that general area too. If we did get a pullback like that, I would be seriously inclined to want to buy that. The reasons for that would be we do have a nice thick supportive cloud going into the next first few months of next year. There's no there would, even if we if we got a pullback all the way to the Tenkan-sen, the ES would still be completely bullish in Ichimoku terms. And as long as things are bullish, you continue to buy dips. Let's look at the Russell. Russell straight up pretty much last week after putting in a nice bull flag. Very strong candle to the upside and closed very close to the highs. We do have, similar to the crude chart with the Russell, we do have a lower cloud and a very thin cloud below going to the end of the year, and then we have a cloud twist right the first week of January, so this area right here is pretty precarious if we do trade down near it. However, at the moment we're quite far away from it, so we don't need to worry about that for the moment. As far as the near-term stuff that we would need to look at, if we do get a pullback, I would say this prior consolidation zone marked by these few candles are some potential levels of support, and then wherever the Tenkan-sen happens to be when it reopens, I'm going to guess it's going to be up around 1285 area due to the upside momentum, maybe a little bit higher. So wherever the Tenkan-sen is would also offer support if we did get a pullback on the Russell. Let's look at NASDAQ. NASDAQ was really interesting. I had some QQQ options last Friday, and I sold half of them pretty close to the open around 10:15, which was a good call. I should have just gotten out of all of them because it was pretty sketchy and choppy for the rest of the day with the NASDAQ. We didn't make a new high later in the day. We put in the high pretty early in the morning, and the reason for that, in my opinion, is the biotech portion of the NASDAQ. There was a huge gap up in many biotech stocks, as I was informed by looking at the IBB, the ETF that tracks the biotech index. That had a huge gap up, and then just here, I might as well show it to you while we're talking about it. This is the IBB. It's on the weekly. It is bearish under the cloud, but this is what it did last Friday. Got this really big gap up, and then it just proceeded to sell off for the entire rest of the day. It did end up being green on the day, but very weak for the rest of the day. So it's always important to remember that there are a lot of biotech stocks in the NASDAQ. I tend to forget about it myself. I'm used to the NASDAQ being like a tech index. So let's go back to it. Let's go back to the weekly. So it's good that we did put in such a bullish candle last week, because it was looking kind of head and shouldery to me prior to this bullish candle. The fact that we closed under the Tenkan-sen last week was a little bit sketchy. Gave one pause for concern about the trend continuing. But so far, everything is still quite bullish. We do still have a flat Tenkan-sen and a flat Kijun-sen. It's possible that when the new candle opens up for this week, that the Tenkan-sen will be tipping up. In fact, I would expect it to be tipping up, which could project a good potential for a new all-time high. And it's because we did not make a new all-time high yet. The prior all-time high was 49.1950, and we put in a high of last week of 48.97. So we have a fair amount. I mean, in NASDAQ terms, not that much further to go to make a new high, but so we're lagging the other indexes. Let's look at the Dow. I mean, you see the obvious difference in the chart here. The Dow put in a crazy new high last week. It looked like it was potentially slowing down the prior week, putting in a doji. But indeed, it just continued to power higher. So that's all the sideways consolidation we got, which is similar to what happened 3 weeks ago. We put in doji also, and then we powered higher, put in another doji, and then put in this very, very bullish candle. So the Dow is just like basically on fire. But however, we are overbought on the RSI, which wasn't the case on the other charts that we've looked at so far. So that's something to keep an eye on as far as the possibility for a pullback. It would be healthy at this point to get some more sideways action until we worked off this overbought situation before moving higher. And if we zoom back out, you can see just how really straight up this move has been. All right, let's look at, so I got all this XTF. Yep, I got all the US indexes. Let's look at some bonds. Let's look at the ZB, the 30-year. So I previously identified this level here, which was the top of this spike high, and then also was prior support here. So I identified that level as a potential level of support for current time, and so far we are holding that level. We came down and tested. We put in a low right exactly at that 148 level. So I'm expecting that it's possible that we could either bottom here on bonds, or we could just move sideways for a while, maybe bear flag before we make the next leg down. We do have a gap to fill above, so it's possible that we could get a bounce here, come up, fill this gap, and then continue lower, depending on where the Tenkan-sen is on the new open. I expect it to be lower, reflecting this downside price action. Let me make the chart bigger for you to see. We are in oversold territory too, which is indicative that we could expect a bounce here. We can look at some other, we don't have any other oversold to look at anytime, at least recently in the ZB. But that is a good reason to expect potential for a bounce. Also, Ichimoku charts, the cloud represents equilibrium, and price doesn't tend to get too extended above or below the cloud, and we are getting pretty extended below the cloud, so it's likely, especially with the cloud going into a rising pattern, it's likely to get some mean reversion back towards the cloud sometime soon. I can't, it's impossible to call a bottom per se here, but there is a likelihood for a bounce here. How long it lasts, I really can't tell you. We do have the FOMC coming up, so that will pretty much nail it. We'll know by Wednesday afternoon whether or not the bottom is in on the ZB weekly. All right, let's look at the 10-year. Xeon looking quite bearish also, just like the ZB, although we did put in a higher low than we did last week. This looks like a potential reversal candle with a pretty significant bottoming tail here, and but we did put in an inside candle last week, We failed to make a higher high, but we did make a higher low. So trend is still down. We don't have a trend change to the upside, but there is a potential for it that we are putting in a bottoming pattern on the 10-year on the weekly. We are still in oversold territory here on the bonds, the notes. I mean, the Tenkan-sen and the Kijun-sen are both flattening out. The Kijun-sen has actually almost gone completely flat, and the Tenkan-sen is starting to flatten out, which suggests the momentum to the downside is slowing, and it's possible that we could even get a fully flat Tenkan-sen, and if that would be the case, then there would be a really decent reason to believe that we would get a bounce to the upside. We do have a small flat area in the cloud above currently, and then we also have a rising cloud with a flat area above also, which could also attract price back towards it if we do get a bounce. The closer that price gets to flat areas in Ichimoku, the greater the likelihood that it will actually gain momentum towards that flat area. Let's look at some metals. I see it's 5:55 right now, and I see on my other computer I'm watching the things are starting to move around a little bit. Let's look at gold. Gold not looking very good on the weekly. After the last 2 weeks, it did hold the cloud on a closing basis. It did close under the cloud, and pretty significantly under the cloud, and pretty much near the lows of the candle. So as far as Ichimoku is concerned, there's not a particularly good reason to expect a bounce on gold here. I know some other people are expecting bounces for other reasons, but this chart does not say bounce to me. We're not even yet oversold in the RSI. We do have a rising cloud ahead. So if we do get a reversal here and we get back into the cloud, that would mean that we could get back into neutral territory rather than bearish territory. But for the time being, we are bearish on gold. The Chikou is inside the cloud, so the Chikou does have some support, which could slow price action to the downside, but we could sell off quite a lot more before the Chikou actually finds its final support at the bottom of the cloud, which is quite a lot lower, so much lower that gold bulls really don't want to see it. We're talking 11,1870. Let's look at silver. There's an interesting divergence going on between silver and gold at the moment. Silver is actually bullish. It's above the cloud. It's been holding the weekly cloud for the last 3 weeks after putting in this potential bottoming pattern. We did put in a higher high and a higher low 2 weeks ago, and then last week we once again put in a higher high and a higher low. Very small actual candle, lots of tails on last week's candle. But if we do continue the move to the upside, we could look for potential resistance at the Tenkan-sen. Tenkan-sen is currently at 1757.8. Which isn't actually a number that gold trades in, at least not in the US. Maybe in England and spread betting type charts it trades at that number, but so let's call it 1758. But we could actually even get a flat Tenkan-sen when I'll probably still be talking when the new candle opens up, because it's getting closer and closer to that time. It's now 5:57. So I would expect that it's very likely that the Tenkan-sen will go flat here, and that we could get attraction to the Tenkan-sen, and that it will act as resistance once we get there at 1758 or thereabouts. Let's look at the all-important USDJPY chart, which already has its new candle open. Ooh. So I was thinking that it's sort of the last great hope for the commodities, that the dollar yen would actually find resistance at the top of the cloud here, and indeed get a pullback. It's a little bit difficult for me to see whether that is the case or not. It looks like the top of the cloud last week was at 115.41. There's no more cloud now, and it looks like we're actually over that level. We're at 115.43 currently. But we'll see how the rest of the week progresses and how this candle actually forms. If we do get some selling, we're going to have support at the top of the cloud at 114.40. And then if we do move into the cloud, we have support all the way through the cloud next week down to, let's see, about 110.16. The cloud shape for this particular candle is kind of weird, but it is what it is. The cloud is moving down at this point, suggesting lower prices could be ahead for the dollar yen. And we're quite extended above the Tenkan-sen. So if we do get selling, we could expect to find support at the Tenkan-sen, which is probably going to open slightly higher, but maybe around the same level as the cloud here. Oh, well, I shouldn't say it's going to open slightly higher because it already has opened slightly higher than where it was last week. So we do have Tenkan-sen support all the way down at 108.31, but that is really much lower. You never know what's going to happen with the FOMC, though, however. All right, let's just go back to silver quickly. Yep. So what I said was going to happen, what I thought would happen with silver did happen. We did get a flat Tenkan-sen, just as I suspected. Let's look at gold, see what the Tenkan-sen did over there. We also got a flat Tenkan-sen on gold. Now that's significant because that is something that could actually suggest it is time for a bounce on gold, even though it looked quite bearish in all other ways Ichimoku. That flat Tenkan-sen suggests it's time for some mean reversion to the upside. And oops. All right. So I'm getting scattered now because the markets are open, and let's see if I don't know if I've forgotten anything. I think I got the main stuff taken care of. So thank you for watching my video. I won't keep you any longer. Thanks for watching my video. If you're curious about learning more about Ichimoku, check out my website, CloudChartist.com, or hit me up on Twitter at CloudChartist, or feel free to ask questions in the comment section below on YouTube. If you want to be notified when I do release new videos, do subscribe to my YouTube channel. I have been releasing some other videos intra-week lately. I've been doing some top-down analysis on crude, gold, other stuff. It's, if you're interested in learning this stuff, it would be a good thing to do. It's free. Please do give me a thumbs up if you like the video. I appreciate it. It will help me eventually on YouTube, getting some better bandwidth, etc. apparently. And have a great trading week, and I'll catch you next time. Thanks again.